Ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday night, and we have a packed house here for Society Reviews, movie reviews. And tonight we are going over the well talked about Disney flop, as you can officially say, Pixar's Lightyear, and we'll also be going over one of the latest Netflix films with Chris Hemsworth and Miles Teller, and titled Spiderhead. Wow, my own intro screwed it up. But here tonight, I'm joining us with a couple of familiar faces you guys already know and a new face. I'm going to go ahead and introduce the guys that you've met from last week. Rob Motto is back with us here again to talk about another movie, another couple of films this week that we all enjoyed. And then our friend Rick Angor is here, back with us all the way from Rick's Texas Cafe. And this week we have a good buddy of mine, someone I've known for the last few years that I haven't gotten to talk to for a while, but he's back all the way from Australia. So you think it's late for us here in the United States. It's already Tuesday for him all the way over there. But Matt Movie Reviews. Matt, how do you pronounce your name? I should have asked that before we went on.
Pejkovic, Pejkovic, like the J is like pronounced like a Y. Pejkovic.
All right then. Nice to see you. So yeah, got you all here this week. So before I get to Rick and Rob, since Matt's the one that's joining us here for the first time this week, I want to kind of get you an introduction onto exactly what it is you do, your background, and the things that you're working on, so the audience can get a little bit accustomed to Matt. So Matt, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you very much. Well, for the last 15 years, I've been working as a film critic in entertainment media. I run the Matt's Movie Reviews website and also the podcast and YouTube channel, and I also work as a freelance writer and a editor as well for various different kind of publications like Collider, Joe Blow. We got this covered. But my number one kind of thing is all the Matt's Movie Reviews content. I very much going to enjoy doing this. It's the first time I've done a streaming podcast like this one, so I'm looking forward to talking movies with you guys.
It's great. Yeah, I mean, you've been working in movies for quite some time. I mean, you kind of started off doing like the whole like press junket thing, and you were doing that for a while. I know you have like plenty of videos on your YouTube regarding that. Tell us a little bit more about kind of your background in film coverage.
Essentially, just started off kind of like working for free for anyone who will take me on. This started back in 2007, maybe 2006, so long ago now. And from that, it just came about that I started a website, and then I just got in touch with a lot of media companies and PR people here in Australia, and got invited to junkets, got invited to interview a lot of people, and that kind of spun into the podcast that I have now. So today I'm going to drop episode number 440. So it's like
Nice.
a whole ton of interviews there. I do around 2-3 podcasts a week and movie reviews as well. And then I've written for a bunch of magazines, Film Inc., Big Issue, a whole bunch of magazines here in Australia, and websites as well. But mostly it's the content that I got online that I'm most proud of. Starting a website from the bottom up and really kind of sticking to it for such a long time and having a bit of a fan base there. It's been a real kind of, for me, a proud moment for myself. And I love just talking movies, writing about movies, and then enjoying in movie chats like this. So yeah, it's a pleasure to do it, and especially to be here as well.
Nice, very nice. Well, we'll definitely keep you on. Towards the end of the show, we'll get all your plugs in so people know where to find you. For now, I want to toss it over to Mr. Rick. He's joining us here once again after a successful week one doing this. How have you been over the last few days? I know you've been doing a lot of baseball action. So, is it the Chihuahuas in El Paso? And have they been doing pretty well?
Well, no, they've blown a few good games, and we did win, I think, once. It's a little exhausting because I go straight from work to the games, and then I try to get home, and I have dishes to do, I have laundry to do, and then I have to squeeze in a couple of movies every so often, so I'm kind of backed up on my reviews. So today, since we didn't work today, I managed to type up some that will be published later, one that was published today. And I also managed to clean a little bit about the house. So it's been busy. So, but now there are no games for the rest of the week, so I'm a little more free.
Okay. Let me ask you a quick question. That stadium you guys got over there, is that recently built? Because it looks very similar to like Petco Park in San Diego, and I know like they're like the AAA team of the Padres, if I'm not mistaken. So I guess they've modeled their stadium closer to what the dimensions of the Petco Park are.
No, that we're going on 10 years. I think.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think next year it'll be 10. Well, we started in 2014, but it's going to be about 10 years since we've had the stadium. No, it's really nice. Southwest University Park is what it's called.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah, I mean, good for you. Obviously, it's just weird because you're a big fan of the AAA team, and obviously you grew up in San Diego, so I'm well versed in the Padres. So if anyone knows about the pain of failing baseball teams, I know very, very, very well. It's been since what 1998 the last time we had anything to cheer for down there. So it's been a rough go of things. And then joining us here once again this week, Mr. Rob Motto. He's been around for quite a bit of shows that we've done here in the last few weeks. So how's it feel just being like a regular now?
I mean, it feels good. I've wanted to do this for a while. But the way my Twitter persona sort of comes off is not like the kind of guy who plays well with others. So it was always harder to kind of get somebody who would put up with my bullshit. So I really appreciate that you've given me a forum to kind of spew my nonsense. Appreciate that.
Oh yeah, no, don't trust me. There's definitely a lot of spewing to be done tonight, especially with the movies that we have going on tonight. I want to give a quick little shout out to Cult Classic Cage, who joins us on our Barroom podcast on Friday night and our movie night on Saturday night as well. She's here. And then I also want to go ahead and let people know that we are broadcasting both on YouTube and Twitch. So if you are watching this right now on YouTube, go ahead and use that link and follow us on Twitch as well, because we may be doing some more exclusive things on Twitch in the near future moving forward. So it's a full house tonight. We're all here. I think I'll just go ahead and just get right into it, because I feel like with this first movie that we're going to talk about, there's a lot to talk about. As we all know, it's the Lightyear movie, the Buzz Lightyear film, solo film without Tim Allen, and it's, let's just say it's not doing very well. Now, I want to save a lot of the box office talk for the end, because really I want to get to the nuts and crannies of the actual film itself. I don't want to get to that, so I want to go ahead and play this right here. Oh, I think I just lost it. I'll pull it back up. Just to kind of get an understanding of exactly what went on with this film. Here's a little short pitch.
From Disney and Pixar.
You go to space? I can see stars. That is space.
What is happening right now?
She's afraid of space.
What? She should be. It's horrible. On June 17th. Robot aliens have attacked.
Here we go.
Go to infinity and beyond.
Hang on. Buzz!
That was utterly terrifying, and I regret having joined you. Disney and Pixar's Lightyear. Rated PG. Only in theaters June 17th.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Disney and Pixar's Lightyear. It's not Buzz Lightyear, it's just simply Lightyear. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about all the missteps with the movie, but I want to just kind of give people an idea of what exactly the film was about. So, as you all know, if you guys haven't seen, as you saw in the trailer here, this is supposed to be an origin story of the legend of Buzz Lightyear. Now, as you know, if you watched the first Toy Story movie all the way back in the 90s, Buzz Lightyear was a very popular toy that all the young kids, Andy's age wanted. It was a very popular seller. It was stocked in all the shelves in the stores. And there was this huge backstory about, how he was kind of like a space fighting ranger, and he had like these cool villains and all these great abilities. So essentially, this movie was made as an origin story to present how Buzz Lightyear became the legendary Buzz Lightyear that we know him as today. Now, you can argue whether this film actually did that or not, because I don't think so. I think some of the people who actually saw this film don't think so as well. But essentially, the film starts off is that it's Buzz Lightyear and his partner Hawthorne, who are training a new rookie on a foreign planet, and apparently their entire colony is there as well. Well, the foreign planet has a lot of hostile features, let's just say the least, that makes it to where it's not really safe for them to stay on this planet for very long. So they retreat to the ship, and they all try to leave, except for they crash into a mountain on the way up the ship, and they essentially are stranded on the planet by themselves. So with nowhere to go, Buzz Lightyear decides to essentially volunteer himself for a space mission, saying that if he can figure out a way to work hyperspace, that he can figure out a way for him and his entire colony to leave the planet and go back to their homeland. So he tries it the first time. It doesn't exactly go the way that it should, but it's somewhat successful. But there's one little hiccup. By the time he returns back to the planet, he realizes that he spent 4 years up in space, even though it had only been a couple of minutes for him. So now he's in a dilemma where he has to essentially figure out how is he going to get everyone back home, because that is the mission, to get everyone back home. But every time he makes a jump, he loses 4 years, and 4 years pass by over and over again, to the point where everyone who he's known is pretty much grows old and is no longer with us. So he successfully completes his mission towards his last run. But as he comes back, the colony has now have their shields up. It turns out that they're being attacked by a group of evil robots led by the one named Zorg, right? So now Buzz Lightyear has to team up with a junior division group of misfits, as they are the only ones who are outside of the shield that can save the day and save our heroes and hopefully find the way back home. So I want to go ahead and talk to Rob about essentially the characters here, because Matt obviously hasn't seen the movie, so I wanted to focus a little more on the characters. Buzz Lightyear, he's the title one. He's the one that everyone's here to see. This film is supposed to be a film that presents him as, the hero, the super, cool space hero that all the kids love, and you're supposed to get a window into what makes Buzz Lightyear. Do you feel the way that I feel, that this film fundamentally failed on essentially accomplishing that goal, which then pretty much fails the entire purpose of doing this movie in the first place?
Yeah, I think that a big problem with this movie is that the titular character, Buzz Lightyear, is kind of made to look like a buffoon, that he's like a fool. He's so serious about being the best and sort of, kind of going out of his way to portray those qualities. But it's viewed as him being foolish. He's incompetent. He's headstrong. And all of this is sort of to set up a more like collectivist sort of narrative about if you're going to be an individual, you're going to, run the risk of ruining relationships with your friends. And, you can only be, successful when you're part of a team, which it just seemed to undercut the heroic quality of the main character and what he's supposed to be. And, it's basically like a newer version of like Captain Kirk from Star Trek, he's like basically a space cowboy, but someone that you can follow as a leader. And just none of that came through, even if it's an origin story. And then, we get later into the movie, and it's just like the movie seems to hate Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah. So, when you're doing an origin story like this, what you want to do is that you want to, and obviously our character isn't going to be like the super, cool action hero that we all know him as. It's basically the tale of him as he leads up to that character. So assuming there's going to be growth, assuming there's going to be, a set of, qualities and skills and challenges that he has to overcome, that makes him the hero that he is today, right? And what I was looking for with this movie is that, okay, obviously there was like tease about, when is he going to get his wings? When is he going to fly and do like rocket ship, that type of stuff? But there was really no hint of him being like this super like badass like space fighter or anything like that. Like you don't really see him in like hand-to-hand combat outside of maybe like the very first scene like in the movie where they're like fighting off like the plant that just like grabs you and like just drags you away. They just like keep replaying that for like comedic value. And then later on in the film, like he doesn't really take the helm as the hero, because the story, the way it's presented, is that Hawthorne, his partner, is the one that everyone looks up to, even to the point that halfway during the movie, there's a statue erected of her rather than like Buzz Lightyear. Like Buzz in this universe is really just kind of looked at as more of like an outlaw and someone that the entire colony looks down on. Like at one point, right before his last jump, there's like they were getting ready to essentially arrest him because he wouldn't like go with the flow and whatnot. So it was a very, I guess you could say, interesting portrayal of his character. Before we get into it a little more deeply, Rick, what did you think of the portrayal of Buzz Lightyear in this movie?
He came across as dim, pompous, dismissive of everyone. He wasn't an interesting character. I wouldn't have cared if this was an origin story or the way they want to sell it is that we're supposed to pretend it's a live action movie. Live action animated. No, he was. I kept putting down. He's pompous. He's dumb. He's stubborn. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to work with anyone. He keeps dismissing the rookies. So it's like, why am I going to follow this person? Why are we going to get a hit movie, let alone more hit movies, allegedly? Out of this. No, he was just dim, and there was nothing interesting about him. In many ways, he was just kind of like a cliched, standard action hero who doesn't know what he's doing, but kind of fumbles his way across. I just wondered. There was no way I would believe that this character would get anyone to buy his figure, his action figure.
Yeah.
That's the kind of vibe I'm getting from this, because from what I understand of the movie, essentially Andy, the character, this is before the events of the first Toy Story, he's watching the film in the cinema, right? And that's the film he's watching is Lightyear. And so the toys that he has, that he plays with in the Toy Story movies, are the merch from that movie. So why would he want to buy a toy of Buzz Lightyear if, considering the way that he's being portrayed in this film, it kind of goes against the whole concept of him in the first place? It's very weird.
Right.
Exactly. The character is supposed to be expiring to this kid because he goes to see this movie. He becomes such a fan of Buzz Lightyear. He's like, oh, I need to have all the toys. I need to have the spaceship. I need to have the character. I need to have his villains so I can, play fight all the action scenes like in the movie. But none of that is there in this film. Like there aren't even like any cool action scenes between Buzz and anyone else in this film. Like you don't see like any like really cool fights. There's a couple of like setup pieces where they're like trapped in the ship and they have to like work together as a team. By the way, if they were putting over the team so much, and how come this team didn't exist in the previous Toy Story iterations up to this point? It's like where did this junior team come from? Like when did Hawthorne come from? Like where do all these other characters just show up? It's like I can understand having like some minor characters in Star's command to kind of like fill things out, but they're pushing the side characters like they're a bigger deal than the main character overall. And like I said,
I would argue that there is one character that every child would want.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a living being. I'll give you that. If you want a spoiler, not spoiler, I'll give you a hint.
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen it, and I probably know what it is.
You're talking about the cat.
That cat, Socks.
Yeah.
I would want the Socks figure more than I would want the Buzz Lightyear. And I have a feeling that when they start merchandising, I'm sure they have. I bet you there'll be more Socks sales than the revamped Buzz Lightyear sales or the Hawthorne sales. I don't think the kids are going to buy that. They're going to go for the cute cat that can fix all your problems.
Well, and so much of the comedy, and even if it was lame at times, so much of the comedy that comes out of that movie is from the cat, or him saying, even in that 30-second clip, it's the cat kind of delivering that line at the end of it. It wasn't. I mean, there are a few moments where I chuckled or something, but there was very little to enjoy in this. So, I could see the cat,
especially
a bestseller.
Especially like early on, like you could tell like a lot of the laughter, especially in that like first like 2-minute scene, was like very, very forced. Like I could see them thinking like a child would think that this is funny, but even to the point where it's like when the only person laughing in the theater is the guy who's way too old to be in the movie to be watching a film like this. It's like I don't think you're hitting your target audience here at all. And then like another thing, like obviously we'll talk a little bit more about the cat because obviously when you have these Disney style films, they always want to have that one thing that be, this is going to sell tons of merchandise on the back end. So they push the cat, the Robo Cat, thinking that all the kids are going to go and ask for this toy on Christmas and whatever the case may be. This will sell on the shelves instead of just sitting on Walmart for 6 months until it hits the clearance section. But it is what it is. So yeah, like one of my biggest complaints about the film is that we don't see any kind of like heroic qualities at all for Buzz Lightyear. It seems like they transferred everything that was supposed to be what makes Buzz Lightyear over to the character of his partner Hawthorne, who is essentially, even though she's not officially the leader, she is the one that's the wise one, the one that's in charge, the one that's more level-headed, the one that everyone kind of like looks up to in Star Command and things of that nature. So I was thinking early on, it's like, oh god, we're going to get like another like bait and switch here where that everyone comes in for Buzz Lightyear, but the takeaway that the film is trying to give you is that, oh no, this Hawthorne character, she's so amazing and she's so great. And then we'll talk about the whole controversy with the two moms later on, but I want to talk to you especially about Hawthorne. Did you feel like they were setting up on almost a bait and switch? I felt like they got close to it, but didn't go all the way. But in the context of the film, it sounds like she was a bigger hero in their universe than Buzz was, right?
I mean, she certainly has that profile, and the thing is, I didn't mind her character. I didn't think her character was obnoxious. I didn't think I thought it was supposed to give the audience a way of connecting. It's weird because she was written as a way for the audience to connect to Buzz, because of their close relationship, and she was the one that believed in him to get the hyper speed figured out, or whatever that plot point was. But he does it so often. She's at the end of her life and she's dead by the time he figures it out. And so it's supposed to be this emotional catharsis, but there's nothing building Buzz up. There's no reason why we like are going to care necessarily in that moment for it to have a lasting impact. And therefore we don't care about it. I don't remember if she was her niece, if she was her granddaughter, granddaughter. Okay. And here's the thing, like, wouldn't it have made more sense for that person to have some kind of relationship to Buzz other than just my dead friend's kid who I don't even know? It just felt like a very ham-fisted way of, trying to have Hawthorne, humanize Buzz, but then carry it the rest of the movie, and it just didn't work at all.
Yeah, I want to come back to that in a second. Rick, what did you think of Hawthorne's character?
Well, she was the competent counterpart to Buzz's idiocy and slight megalomania. I thought she was a good character, but I didn't feel anything for her as she continued to age and just eventually die and form her own family. I would have told, if I had been Hawthorne, I would have said to Buzz, you've tried this 4 times and you've already lost like 18 years. Maybe, you quit now. We've got a pretty nice setup here. Why don't we just, form our lives here and, we'll let Sox figure things out, because that's what he does. But I don't think it was a bait and switch. I don't think it was a bait and switch so much as she was just a counterpart.
Yeah, I would say this, like the one quality they seem to, I guess, stay consistent with the Buzz Lightyear character is that his drive to complete the mission at all costs. But the way that it was presented in the film is like he was driven to complete the mission at the detriment of everyone else, rather than to be the hero for everyone. And that was kind of the way that they portrayed it. Because it even got to a point where it's like, hey, look, we're completely fine with just staying here now. Like, you don't have to, go out there and try to find us a way home. Like, we've already pretty much built like housing and schools here and stuff. Like, we're completely fine, which pretty much throws away like everything that, any kind of like heroic angle to his character at that point, when the people who he's trying to like save to get off this island, it's not like, they're like, oh, well, I have to find a way out of here, or these people are going to be in danger, they're going to die. It's like, no, the people are saying, no, we're completely fine with being here. So what you're doing going out into space is just completely pointless at that point. Anyone else feel that way?
Yes.
Yeah. There's no stakes. There's no reason for us to care about what's happening.
Yeah. So one thing with the you got something, Matt?
I just wanted to pose a question. It sounds like to me as if they're using the Lightyear film as a way to usher in a new potential future character for future content in this Hawthorne character. I mean, what I can see definitely through like what they're doing with the MCU, there seems to be a lot of transition characters coming through. Captain America to now Captain Britain, the whole Captain Falcon now taking over the mantle of Captain America. Katie Bishop and whoever the character was in Black Widow. Like, it seems like a new, and I have a feeling that maybe they're using this film to maybe bring in maybe a potential series for the Hawthorne character. If Buzz Lightyear is leaving and there's 4 years left there, what's happening within those 4 years? That could be a potential story that they could have in maybe in a movie or a series. That's what it seems like to me. If they're propping her up to be the hero of the story, then why can't there be a potential for that to be spinned off into something that Disney had? Because if Disney has proven anything, they love to take their IP and just drain it for everything that they can. And it seems like perhaps we can do the same thing with the Toy Story stuff.
Well, I think that would be interesting because the actor who voiced Buzz Lightyear is Chris Evans, and the actress who voiced Hawthorne is Keke Palmer. And if you know anything about how much money those two people make, I would just find it very interesting if Disney. Now, you could be right because Pixar's done that where they'll release like little shorts or like little prequel episodes before a movie comes out or something. Like I think they even did it before Lightyear. They had a little animated short or something that was previous to events in Lightyear. So yeah, it's certainly possible.
Yeah, I think after the box office results of this movie, though, if they do end up doing that, it's definitely going to be a Disney Plus exclusive and not anything that they're going to release in theaters. But so I want to talk about, obviously, what everyone's been talking about with this film, and it's the whole controversy with the same-sex thing, because this goes into a couple of points with kind of the whole formation of the story and the film of itself. So Buzz Lightyear, there's about a 2-minute scene, obviously. Now, they pretty much tell you that, the character of Hawthorne is a lesbian, and she is married to another woman during the course of the film. So while Buzz Lightyear is going to space, trying to figure out a way to travel through hyperspace so they can get all these people back home, every time he jumps, 4 years pass. So he comes back every 4 years, and you see that, Hawthorne is married, and then all of a sudden she's pregnant, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And then the next thing you know, he keeps coming back, and then it's like, oh, now it's the kid's first day at school, and now it's the birthday, and now the kid's a teenager, and he has like his own girlfriend now, and then now the kids have their own kids. So it's basically about a 2-minute montage of every time he goes back, they open the door, and then like something, some new life moment has happened with like the little family or whatnot, and it's easy to see why there was so much online, uproar about this, not just from the people who were complaining about it, but from the people who created this, like the Pixar and Disney family, because this felt like the only thing in the film, that 2-minute segment, that felt like the only thing in the film that they really put like heart and effort into out of everything else that was in this movie. Like, they really wanted people to see, hey, look, we have this lesbian family, and they're just like everyone else, and they raise their own family, and they're happy, and they wanted that to be the takeaway. And that's fine if you want to do that, but here's the problem. You put all of your time and effort into that 2-minute scene, and then, okay, we still have like another hour and like 30 minutes of movie left, and you guys didn't think of what to do with the storyline. You didn't put any effort into the animation. You didn't put into anything that would actually attract people to want to watch this movie. Things that normal moviegoers would take away from it. There's nothing else there. So do you feel the same way that I felt, that they put a whole lot of care and effort into that scene so they can portray a lesbian couple in the film, but then everything else just fell flat as a result of that? As long as they forgot that, hey, we still have a movie to do. It's not a 2-minute short.
Well, it wouldn't be nearly as bad if the movie itself was good. You know what I mean? Like, if it was in there and the rest of the movie was well written and thoughtful and entertaining and exciting and had all these aspects that even kids want to see in a space adventure movie, I think that it largely would have gone not maybe unnoticed, but not talked about nearly as much. And then it's like I said on I don't remember if it was Saturday or Friday, but Chris Evans brought negative publicity to a movie that was always somewhat underwhelming in the creative department. And so it's like, I know it's a franchise movie. I know it's intellectual property. I know that Pixar and Disney were probably banking on that. And it's a character, and we're, that you love and, you've seen before and have a relationship with. And then they completely messed it up by not casting Tim Allen. So I consider all of that in this. Again, it doesn't bother me that much. However, it's very apparent that they put no thought into the movie overall, and that you have this 2-minute montage that basically it used up all your creative energy, and that added into it is just it's just disappointing. It's like, why would you do that other than the reasons you could possibly come up with, critically thinking.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it was. Anything new, and I have a feeling that it's just the people comment that it's a coincidence, We've seen lesbian parents before. Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
Disney property. We had lesbian parents before. It's nothing new. As to why it was there, we have to remember a couple of things. First, it had been cut. That little kiss, the kiss had been cut.
And then they put it back.
They put it back.
They put it back as a response to the whole Florida parental bill thing.
Oh,
so it was.
Like I said, we'll get a little more detail into that later on. But
but for the same sex kiss, it wasn't even that big. It wasn't a big moment, and the whole thing about her, being married to a woman, again, kind of pointing out here that this movie is supposed to have been released. The LightYear supposed to have been released in '95, right? All right. So I guess maybe I'm old enough to remember that in 1996 the Defense of Marriage Act was signed into law. So
I don't even think by 90. I don't even think by 95 that Ellen had come out, right? I mean, that was a little later down the line, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that might have been a little later. Yeah.
So I can't suspend disbelief that much to where I believe that a major hit movie at the beginning of a franchise would have the concept that not only did not exist, but would have probably been close to illegal at that time. It doesn't bother me. But it's irrelevant to me. But they put it was a creative decision. They decided to do it because they wanted to, I guess, say, oh well, yes, lesbian parents are good. But all I kept wondering is, who's the father? Who's the grandfather? That was my big question.
Somebody on Twitter was asking that. It was just like, don't you think they could have figured it out? And it was just like, why are you getting angry at someone making a joke over a cartoon? Relax.
Yeah. Well, I want to put. Well, go ahead and finish your point.
That was one of my big takeaways. Like, who's the father? Was it important? Was it? I don't know how it was. I mean, I think I know how it was done, but I was just curious as to who the grandfather was. Did the grandfather have a role in the life? And then it's more. I would have thought that Izzy's mother and father would have been slightly as important as the grandmother. That's usually the way it is. It was with me. My mother was more. I mean, my mother. I love my grandmother. I love my mother, but my mother was the one who had the greater influence, not my grandmother in my life. So those are things. It's just it wasn't relevant to me, but I don't know why it was strictly necessary to have lesbian parents.
And it has more to do with the people in charge in Disney and Pixar. Like I said, we'll touch up that a little bit more. But I wanted to give a quick shout out to the Force of Light Entertainment podcast. If you follow them on YouTube, because they brought up this point, and Rick kind of mentioned this one in his statement too. Is that there was two things about the whole setup of the lesbian couple that didn't make any sense, especially since the role that it played in the course of the film. First of all, when Buzz is doing his hyperspace run and he's just like going back and forth, one time he comes back, all of a sudden Hawthorne is pregnant, but at no point whatsoever do they ever establish, okay, well then who knocked her up? Like how did she get pregnant? It's like there's no mention of like any kind of like father or anything like that. Not even like a surrogate, like nothing. It's just she's just pregnant now, and like there's no explanation to it. They don't even bother to explain it. And then the other thing is that later on, when we get to the introduction of Izzy, who's Keke Palmer, who plays Hawthorne's granddaughter in the film, at no point when they introduce her character do they ever mention her mother or her father. Every reference is about her grandmother and how great her grandmother is. I'm thinking to myself, aren't her parents still alive? Like, where are they? Aren't they trapped in there? Like, there's no mention that, hey, no, my parents are still alive and they're trapped in there, so I need to save them. It's like they don't even make any reference to them in the film either. So it's like
she's
even when
she's an orphan,
exactly,
like Bambi.
Exactly. And you ask yourself, well, how did that happen? It's like you did the whole thing showing us about how they raised this kid and they fell in love and they had a kid of their own. It's like, well, then where's the couple then? Like, where are they? It's like they were so focused on the lesbian relationship with the grandparents. They didn't even mention the actual parents of the daughter later on in the film. That was like a weird omission that people can know exactly what happened. I mean, it's not like you just say that the parents just don't exist in this universe. Like, did anyone else catch on to that as well?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was a strange absence. I mean, it was almost like, oh, hey, the way that we conceived you made your lifespan really short, so that's why you could conceive children but not live very long. It's like, what?
Does that mean that Izzy's grandmother didn't take on her partner's name because it's still Hawthorne? So I figured that there's a boy, he kept the Hawthorne name. So I guess Kiko. It was Kiko. Kiko was a perfect wife for this scenario. She never spoke. She was a literal silent partner. We never got to hear from her. We never got to hear what she sounded like. We never got anything about their romance or their long-term relationship. So I don't know why she was there. She could have just
perfect submissive housewife. That's exactly right.
Yeah. I know Matt had a question I was going to ask you. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'd imagine that's why maybe the scene was cut out in the first place, because it just didn't make sense of the overall arc of the film. And it's very true. I mean, just listening to what you guys are talking about, I think this very significant thing that has to be mentioned again. The reason it was put back in was because it was almost kind of like a protest kind of decision, more an activist decision than a filmmaking decision. If that law hadn't gone through in Florida, would that scene still be in there? Would there be such a furor about it? No, it wouldn't. No. And the reason why it was probably cut is because of the questions we're asking right now. I imagine the producers or the director or the writer looking at going, you know what, it doesn't really work. Maybe we'll hold on to that, release it as a short one of our Pixar shorts in a later time, you know? But because that bill came out, they put it in there. And then when that happens, I think a lot of people, including myself, who's a parent of two boys, so I've got a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, they wanted to see Lightyear. I wasn't comfortable having them see Lightyear because we are a Christian family. And there are political and social and cultural ramifications that comes with stuff like that. Now, if I wanted to have to watch that, then I have to explain all this kind of stuff. And I'm not going to explain this stuff to my 6-year-old. This stuff you don't explain to a 6-year-old. They're not ready for this stuff yet. Okay, and that's my firm belief about that. And why there has to be in a Lightyear movie, I don't know either. And I think the other aspect of it is just that it just seems like now a lot of Disney releases, it just seems like I'm almost watching kind of like a protest picture or a piece of activist art than I am watching what was supposed to be previously pure Disney magic, you know, what it was known as before. Right. And I think a lot of parents now, and maybe this has something to do why the box office is so low, not to mention the fact that money's tight and people don't want to go to the movies and spend that much money, had to come down to the fact that, look, we just want to go to a movie, chill out, have some fun, switch our brain off for 2 hours, hour and a half, and that's it. And maybe on the way home, the kids can have fun and play with their little cat action figure thing that we bought from the store on the way home. When you put something like that in the movie, the scenario that runs, I imagine, running most people's brains, especially, say, Christian parents or parents from a religious or cultural background and might not like that kind of whole aspect of it. They might be like, well, the whole car ride home is me trying to explain to my kid why there's 2 women kissing and one of them became pregnant, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There is ramifications in regards to that. And I think it's something that maybe perhaps now Disney might look at. They probably won't. That they might look at and say, well, maybe in the future we should maybe make a movie centered around that themes instead of shoehorning the things in a story that is supposed to be something else entirely. That's my 2 cents on it anyway.
Yeah, well, one thing that I notice is the people who are complaining, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, Jacob. I'm sorry. The people who are saying, well, if you object to the same-sex relationship, but you don't object to the romances in previous Disney movies, that you're a bigot, homophobe, what have you.
Yeah, I've heard that.
What I would say is that unless the Hawthorne Kiko romance is the plot, then you're comparing 2 different things. All those other movies that they're complaining about, Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Little Mermaid, all those, the romance is the plot. I mean, the whole point is for them to fall in love. I mean, for Ariel and Eric to fall in love, and that's the whole plot. That's not the plot of Lightyear. Now, maybe when we get the Elsa and her girlfriend in Frozen 3, maybe then that would be a reason to say that. Okay, then you
And I've heard that argument a lot. People who are online say, "Well, why are you guys freaking out about the same-sex kiss, but you guys don't freak out about the heterosexual kiss?" It's like, well, here's the thing that you guys are missing is that these movies are essentially family films. So when you have a family film, you're going to actually have families in the film. So you're going to have a husband and a wife, and you're going to have how many kids that husband and wife had. That's just the essence. I mean, that's literally your target demographic for these type of movies are people who are either married or have kids who will say, "Hey, you want to go to the movie theater and watch this film?" And the parents are going to sit there, their kids are going to have fun. They may not enjoy it as much, but at least their kids are having fun. Like that's your target demographic. So that whole argument of, well, why don't you complain when it's a heterosexual family? It's like that's the target demographic of the movie. Now, I don't know how many same-sex couples are going to watch a movie, a Disney movie that caters exclusively to them. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to try to do. I mean, obviously, Walt Disney makes more money than they probably deserve to promote something like that and push something like that if you want to do it. But I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, you're talking about a film, an already established franchise in the Toy Story universe that has families that have been around for many, many years. So that argument doesn't hold too much water to me anyway. But kind of moving on, let's jump in.
I just want to say just one from my opinion. I want to echo something that Rob said last week. I think it was in one of your barroom chats where Rob was like, not for censorship in any way, form, or whatever. If people want to make movies with whatever things they want in it, that's fine. If Disney want to make movies with these type of scenarios and characters, etc., awesome, go for it. God be with you. But if you're going to make a movie about it, then make a movie about it. Have the central theme in your characters, project that stuff. Don't shoehorn this thing into something else, because then people get suspicious about that. What happens if the next film, I don't know what's happening, and perhaps they might say this, they might say that. A lot of times when for a parent especially, if you want to go out with your kids, you want to spend hard-earned money, you're going to read up stuff. You're going to look at common sense media. You're going to look at the trailers. You're going to look at a lot of things, especially now more than ever. So if you're going to do it, just do it. Own it. Make that movie. No one's saying you can't. In fact, go for it. Be the people. If you want to live on that, if you want to die on that hill, go ahead and do it. You got the resources. You got the money. I'm sure you got support. Some people in your industry, maybe there's people that will want to go spend their hard-earned on watching it. But just do it. Don't shoehorn a little thing that wasn't supposed to be in your movie. In the end of the day, really, and then say, well, why are people upset? Of course they're going to be upset. It's a very, it's a controversial thing. It still can be.
Well, now that you've told me that, now that you've said, and I mean, everybody here knew about it except for me, that it got put back in the scene. This now makes me feel like this whole like PR thing of saying like, listen to these homophobes who don't want this scene and they're going to die off like dinosaurs. And it's like they plan to do that PR expecting more people to show up to the box office or something, and it completely backfired. Now, I'm not saying I don't know for a fact that they did that, but it seems really suspicious now. They're like, hey, we're going to add it back in and we're going to make even more money. And it's like, no, you're not. No, because the movie's not good. That's why.
Yeah.
Coupled with the Chris Evans comments as well, it didn't work out whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah, so I want to talk about this one. We can talk about his comments. First of all, like as far as the box office goes, I found out that this film was budgeted production-wise at $200 million. And I don't know about you guys when I saw this, but where did the money go? Because there was nothing in this film, especially animation-wise, that made it seem like, okay, this is a $200 million film. Like, I just felt like the animation was kind of unexpired. It was kind of dry, like almost cut and paste. And like there was nothing like in the scene that like really in any scene that just made me go, oh wow, this animation is great. Like it all just kind of feels like standard. Like now I wouldn't say like TV wise, but it didn't feel like it was a big budget film at all. Did you guys get that?
No,
it like a $200 million movie.
It should have been a Disney Plus release. That's how I felt about it in terms of its quality. And again, I have not seen an animated movie in the movie theaters since I was a child. So I'm biased, obviously, but Inside Out was way better in terms of just movie quality, start to finish, just a much better movie. I mean, maybe you guys don't like it or whatever. I don't know. But just in terms of, executing story ideas, the plot, character, just 100% better. So LightYear belonged on a streaming service. It doesn't belong. I mean, it's not worth spending your money on.
Yeah.
I agree with Rob. It's not. It's something that I probably, if I had Disney Plus, I would have expected it there, and it probably should have gone there. And that's been a source of contention for a lot of people who've said that, oh, they had better films, Turning Red, Luca, some other things that
Soul.
that they put on Disney Plus but didn't put out in theaters. But they put this out in theaters because they expected the name recognition of Lightyear to sell it to the parents. That's why. So that as for the budget, well, there were a couple of scenes that I thought were visually nice, but I guess maybe that.
$200 million, nice.
Well, I think some of that money probably went to to Chris Evans' gym bill. He has to keep in shape, keep him looking as beautiful as he always has been. Maybe that's where the money went. I don't know. Not 200 million, but it was no, it was I don't know where that money went.
So real quick.
So I just want to say, I think that Disney also kind of overestimated what type of draw Chris Evans has as well. I think you guys were talking last week about how wasn't he the guy from Not Another Teen Movie?
Yes,
wasn't he the guy that's going to be honest? It was only when he became Captain America that people really gave much. Even before that, he was Johnny Storm and Fantastic Four, and that really didn't do much for his career either. So yeah, I think people really overestimate his drawing power as a box office kind of star. I think they really do, because people aren't watching Captain America. People aren't watching Chris Evans. They're watching Captain America. That's the whole point of it, right? So
yeah. Apart from what, Knives Out, that's.
Oh, I hated that movie.
Yeah.
Oh, what a terrible movie. I gave that a vicious review. It's my most liked review on Letterboxd because it's so negative. I hated that movie. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But no, I can't. No, Chris Evans is not a big. Well, I mean, I don't know how big of a name he is in terms of opening movies, but we don't have that many people who can. Apart from Captain America, I don't think Chris Evans is known for a wide variety of roles.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's more the name recognition of Lightyear. People know who Buzz Lightyear is. So I think people went in thinking this was going to be an origin story. But then they decided, we're going to make it a story about the movie that Andy saw. And they started making it too complicated and got a lot of hand. Go ahead, Rob.
Oh no! I just wanted to say, did you hear the logic that the studios, that they released an interview? I don't know when it came out, if it was this weekend or Friday, but they were basically like, we needed the guy to not sound like Tim Allen does in Toy Story. And it's like, if character's based on the character in the movie, why would he not sound like that guy in the movie? Do you know what I mean? That it's just like my Michael Keaton Batman that's 12 inches tall right there from Batman Returns. You know who he looks like? He looks like Michael fucking Keaton. Sorry.
Exactly.
Why would you change the person's voice?
They already had done that in a kind of a roundabout way, because if people remember that Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, it was Patrick Warburton who voiced Buzz Lightyear. But I don't think anyone really noticed, because it was an animated show geared for kids, like on Disney, on the original Disney Channel, I think. So it wasn't that important.
Yeah.
For this, I guess because, again, we have to remember, this is not Buzz Lightyear the toy. This is Buzz Lightyear, the action character from film.
The movie that Andy's watching.
Yeah.
Right.
It's true, but they're working on nostalgia. So if you're working on nostalgia, wouldn't it be to your benefit to have the voice who brought back all their memories in the first place? It's like, imagine having a Tom Hanks, a Woody spin-off, and also it's Timothy Chalamet doing the voice of a version of a Texas Ranger that inspired the toy. It just wouldn't work.
Well, I'm expecting Disney Plus to release recently discovered episodes of Woody's Roundup anytime soon.
I just want to give a shout out to Spencer, our editor extraordinaire at Bounding in the Comics, who just joined us here. I do want to go ahead and kind of wrap up our final thoughts about this movie, because I do want to talk about the box office implications of this film. So for me, I looked at a couple things, like the secondary characters, the side characters, like basically the group with like Keke Palmer and what is his name? I can never pronounce it right. Taka Wahidi, whatever his name is.
Taika
Dave
Waititi.
Waititi.
Just call him David.
Yeah.
Just call him David Cohen because that's his real name.
Okay. Yeah. That. Yes. Okay. So I'm just gonna call him David Cohen. Moving on. It's either gonna be that. It's either gonna be that or the guy who ruined Jojo Rabbit. So I mean,
he is insufferable. Okay. What We Do in the Shadows is funny. That TV show that he produces for FX. That's pretty funny. Everything else, he just annoys the shit out of me.
Yeah. So like the little side characters I didn't really care for. I thought that they were trying to pump them up to be the comedic relief of the movie, but I didn't feel anything for any of those guys. Like even when they tried to get like emotional with them, so that had no effect on me. And then I guess the twist of the film, it might be a little bit of a spoiler if you haven't seen it, but maybe if you haven't seen it by now, I think you're planning on seeing it, especially with the box office numbers. Is that as Spencer says here, they revealed that in Toy Story 2 that they revealed that Zorg is Buzz's dad or the future Buzz. Now I actually think that had a lot to do with the fact that they were trying to parody the whole Star Wars, like Luke, you are my father, because I mean it is pretty much a parody of Star Wars. But in this movie, they decide to make Zorg essentially an evil version of Buzz Lightyear. So the villain of the film is in fact Buzz Lightyear. Like in the movie, and we talked about just them just deconstructing this character and just taking this character out. It's like, what was even the point of doing that? Because now essentially what you're telling me is that not only is the plot pointless because the plot that you set up in the first act has absolutely nothing to do with the final act, but then we get to the final act and all of a sudden it's Buzz Lightyear versus himself, and essentially the evil character is Buzz. So it's like, you can complain about a lot of creative decisions in this movie. That's essentially what sunk this film. But to me, those are the two blaring ones that when I saw it, I was like, okay, there's nothing to this film whatsoever. Rob and Rick, I'll let you guys get your final thoughts in.
Yeah, look, I just don't. I think the movie shouldn't have gotten made because there wasn't enough creative energy behind it. There wasn't enough original enough idea for it to be executed and for it to be a worthwhile time at the movies for an audience. And I think it's really disappointing because it's the fifth movie in a or at least the spinoff of four successful movies that people loved and loved Tim Allen being in that role. And there was just really nothing here for them. I am not the person for these movies, certainly not, but I'm not going to deny when like a movie has momentum and engaging and is worthwhile, and none of the time that I spent watching it felt that way. And then there's just the controversy that goes with it that kind of just shows the people that made it are out of touch with, the people that paid to see it or could have paid to see it if it was a better product. So it's just disappointing. I gave it a 1.5 out of 5. So.
Yeah, I pretty much gave it the exact same rating, 1.5 out of 5. I mean, to me, it's just a complete waste of time. Rick, what do you think of the final thoughts of your film?
It's probably going to be my biggest disappointment of the year because they have decided to make it like the Toy Story films or the Buzz Lightyear Starship Command series. Have it fun, zippy, have some jokes. It would have been fun, but no, they decided to make it very serious and self-important, like Buzz. I didn't see the point of this movie. I don't know why people would want to see this movie, apart from a couple of very nice looking images. And I also thought the same thing. Like, wait a minute, I thought Zurg was his father, and I know that was a spoof. And all I can think of is this was made in 1995. George Lucas would have sued them for so much because there were so many moments.
Yeah.
When Socks comes up, and I was expecting her to say, "Help me, Obi-Wan Lightyear. You're my only hope." It was just a copy of that. The destruction of the not Death Star. I mean, all of these things were just so similar that I thought, no. I'm glad that this is why Disney owns Star Wars, so they can rip themselves off. It was a disappointment. I would give it a 1.52. It's bad.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, Matt, so since you're the one who hasn't seen this, after hearing everything we said about the film, are you glad your decision not to see it, or are you really gearing to watch Lightyear now after everything we just said?
not gearing to watch it. Curious more than anything else. I might perhaps watch it down the line when it's available, kind of like as a digital thing, and I can stream it or something like that. But it's not really something that I'm really kind of like dying to watch, even as a kind of like a more of a morbid curiosity than anything else. But no, not really. I mean, a lot of the feelings I had about the film has kind of like been confirmed from the comments I heard so far, and I think unless unless it's like a screener is offered to me and I have to review it for like work purposes, I don't really think I'll reach out to watch it. And if I did, it will be to give it a watch over before I show it to my kids, just to make sure it's all good on that end. But that's pretty much it, really. No interest at the moment. No.
Well, don't worry, because you were one of many people who did not watch this film, because this film completely bombed at the box office, as we know. So to kind of build up exactly what happened here, because there was a whole timeline of what happened. Last week, at the beginning of the week, there were people stating that this film was probably projected to make about $80 to $85 million domestically. And that's not worldwide, that's domestically here in the United States. And then by the time we got closer to the release, those numbers fell from about 80 to 85 down to 70. And they seem to be pretty confident that it'll at least do 70. Well, then Chris Evans, who's the star of the film, decided to open his mouth about the film. And it was in response to two things. It was responding to, I guess, backlash from people like yourself who was concerned about having the same-sex kiss in the film. It also came the day after the film was banned in multiple countries. Like, it was banned in Saudi Arabia, it was banned in Malaysia, China didn't give it a release, a number of countries. I think it was like somewhere like 12 to 14 when it was all said and done. Yeah. So Chris Evans was asked about, what he felt about the people who were upset about it. And he went on record by saying that anyone who has a problem with the same-sex kiss is an idiot who will die off like the dinosaurs. Now, before I read the other statement, I do want to just point out the irony that this film fell behind Jurassic World at the box office. So his film literally lost out to the dinosaurs while he's slamming people in the same quote. So just throwing that out there. But his full quote was that the real truth is those people are idiots. There are always going to be people who are afraid and unaware of trying to hold on to what was before. But those people are going to die off like the dinosaurs. The interview with Routers, by the way. I think the goal is to pay them no mind, march forward, and embrace the growth of what makes us human. And then he talked about why he was frustrated about the issue of same-sex relationships on screen being a problem in the first place. It's tough not to be a little frustrated that it even has to be a topic of discussion. The goal is to get to a point where it's the norm, that doesn't have to become uncharted waters. That eventually is just the way that it is. That representation across the board is how we make films. So that's the comments that he dropped about a good 2 or 3 days before the film actually opened. So what happened? The film opened up on Thursday, and it did very, very poor numbers. Then it opened up on Friday, and people realized that, this film's not going to do as well as anyone thinks that it's going to do. And by Saturday, they were saying that there's a good chance this film might not even make $50 million domestically. Now, it ended up making about $50 million domestically, but it only did about 80 to 85 worldwide. So they were expecting 80 to 85 just at the United States alone. It ended up doing 80 to 85 in the entire world this weekend. So it was a big, big bomb at the box office. And to put this into perspective, as I mentioned earlier, Toy Story 4 had the exact same film budget as this movie did. So they both had $200 million film budget. So the break even for Toy Story 4 was $700 million. Now, that was with production, marketing, and then all like the little extras added in. Their break even was $700 million. Now, that film ended up making over $1 billion. They ended up getting about $350 million profit from that film. This film, however, if we're to assume that they have the exact same break even, now maybe they don't, because you have to understand that they're not paying Tim Allen, they're not paying Tom Hanks, so maybe their costs aren't as high as that movie was. But let's say that their break even was $500 to $600 million. If this film makes about $350, which is about where it's projected as right now, you're talking about a loss of anywhere to about $100 to at least $150 million when this is all said and done. And we talk about all the self-inflicted wounds, about the whole argument about the scene that didn't even have to be in the film, but they put back in the film, especially despite like Republicans in Florida. You talk about Chris Evans, what he had to say the week of the release. I mean, you're literally slamming people to not watch your film the week of. It's like, why would you even think that was something that you should do? Like, why would that be the one moment you would bite your tongue? Maybe wait till like a couple of weeks afterwards to complain about that when the damage is already done. But it's so many things went against this film. What do you guys think about the fact that now instead of making at least breaking even, that this is probably going to be a 9-figure loss for Disney and Pixar, a company that they've never heard of years ago? I'll start with Matt, and then we can go around.
Well, first off, I think we have to acknowledge that a big reason why Chris Evans is upset is because his brother is gay. His brother has been on talk shows with him. He is gay, so he's got personal stakes in it, right? So I'm sure he's going to be pissed off just on the whole nature of it all. But again, it comes down to what I was saying before. When you add a scene like that in a kids' movie, some parents are going to be wary because there are cultural and political and religious ramifications that come from that. Much as Chris Evans would like to think that we all live in a kind of like this secular utopia where everyone's kind of gone past the whole notions of traditional religious customs and beliefs, etc. It's just not the case, okay? And it also comes down to the fact that kids don't buy movie tickets. The parents of the kids buy movie tickets. So if you really want people to watch kids, to buy the tickets for their kids to watch that movie at the cinema, probably not a good idea that if they are, say, a conservative family that, maybe have a Christian or different religious background, and like to go to the flicks now and again, and Disney used to be their favorite movies that they saw, they call them dinosaurs that shall fucking die. I don't think it's a really good kind of like, PR 101 right there. And the other thing is that I think he should have thought more about, even though there's the countries in the Middle East have banned the film, they don't give a shit about what he says. They don't. The person in, say, maybe the red state that's right next to wherever he lives in the US, maybe that's the person who should be thinking about, And I think that's an essentially true thing. You should have thought less about what the countries that like the Saudi Arabia people there might think about the movie, and a little more about what the people in his own country might think about the movie. And when you make comments like that, I wouldn't be surprised if you were on the fence about it. Maybe I might take my kid and might be okay, blah blah. And then you read those comments, and go, well, fuck him. I'm not going to go. If I'm a dinosaur that's going to die out, then how about we just go do something else that day? Or how about we save our money when Minions comes out the next week? Yeah. I mean.
Or how about we just go watch the movie with the actual dinosaurs in it, which is what some people did.
Could do that as
Which
well.
One?
Exactly. Which one? But yeah, I think it just comes down, and again, it just comes down to if he really is passionate about that, then produce a film with Disney where the main characters are gay and the main plot is surrounding all of that and all that stuff. By all means, do it. Go ahead. No one's saying you can't. We're just saying in this movie that's targeted towards kids, and all the furor, not to mention, over the last year in regards to sexual identity politics and all that around kids and schools and stuff like that as well. I think all of it just comes to the boil where people just kind of had enough of it, really. I think that's what it comes down to.
Anything else you guys want to? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that Matt's right. I would extend. I don't think that people in the United States care what Chris Evans thinks. If he wants to make the movie about the same-sex relationship, more power to him. He has to.
Go ahead.
Do it. But I don't know what he's talking about when he's saying that we need to normalize it. Has he forgotten that Moonlight won Best Picture? Has he forgotten The Power of the Dog was at 12 nominations? Has he forgotten that we've had lots of television shows where you have gay characters and non-binary characters and transgender characters? Has he forgotten that RuPaul's Drag Race is very popular here in the United States? What is he talking about? That it's not normalized. We see it constantly.
Well, look at the 90s. Okay, I grew up in the 90s. Okay, and I remember almost being proud of the fact that it was like, oh hey, I'm watching a movie about gay relationships or like gay characters or whatever, and kind of there's a sense of like you should be accepting of people just because everyone should be tolerated up to a certain degree in terms of free society. It was that kind of point of view. One of my favorite movies growing up is this movie called The Birdcage, which is literally, and it's based on a play that I can't pronounce because I'm terrible at French.
Not
But
much.
thank you. But and I think that movie's hilarious. But it's literally about a couple who has to hide who they are because they love their son and they want him to, to get married to this politician family's, his fiance's from his politician conservative family. And so it's a farce, and it's like, what I'm saying? Like, it's based on a very old type of play, but like, you can make things about subjects that are whatever, potentially taboo or not as celebrated or not as popular, and still try to make it entertaining and try to have a takeaway that allows for empathy to come through. But when you shoehorn in this thing like they did with Lightyear, it's like it's like you're putting very red bright lights on it and saying, "Hey, look at how progressive we are."
And I think a movie, to your point, really did that really well. That came out last year. Was a film called Mitchells and the Machines. It's on Netflix. They actually did that really well. The main character in the film is actually a young lady who's a lesbian, and she wears the pride badge and all that kind of stuff, right? I let my kids watch that. No worries. That's not a big thing. I don't care about who the character is. I just care about, what's happening on the screen. I don't let my kids watch Jurassic Park as well because it's too violent. There's just a certain line you have to take sometimes as a parent as to what you want to have your kids watch on TV. And I think what Chris Evans was talking about, to your point, Rick, with the whole normalizing of it, I don't think he's talking about in the overall concept of entertainment. I think perhaps he's talking about regarding kids' entertainment. That's what I think he's talking about. Maybe Disney in the future want to have more characters like this in kids' movies. I don't know. Could be a possibility. But, we'll have to see in the future what happens.
Yeah, that's probably why we have that give Elsa girlfriend, push. But I would just say to Chris Evans, and I put this out on the Twitter, go out to Bahrain and Qatar and just tell them to their faces, you all are idiots and you all are dinosaurs and you're going to die out. When Chris Evans leads the Kuala Lumpur Pride Parade, then we'll talk. He's not going out.
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Riyadh Pride, come on. Yeah, if he wants to do that. And yes, Matt did remember, and I also remembered that his brother's gay, so I understand that. Why he feels that way, but it's ultimately the parent's decision. The parent thinks that something shouldn't be introduced. That's their decision. Whatever Chris Evans thinks is irrelevant. I don't decide. If I have kids, I'm not going to decide, oh, Chris Evans wants me to see this movie because it has a same-sex couple. No, I'm going to decide. I'm the parent. I decide, not Chris Evans. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah. So last part on this movie before we move on is that, obviously there was a lot of people who were upset with the fact that they replaced Tim Allen in the first place. And I think Yellow Flash even asked on Twitter a little while ago, would you go see this movie if it was redubbed by Tim Allen? Basically trying to see that how many people didn't watch this movie because Tim Allen wasn't the voice of the character and they replaced him with Chris Evans. Now, obviously, if Tim Allen was dubbed in this exact movie and nothing changed, I don't think anyone would want to go see him. But do you think that the fact that Tim Allen was not the voice of Buzz Lightyear in this film turned off a lot of people who would have seen it otherwise as well?
Maybe.
I mean, I think it's possible that there maybe is a 25 to 30% of a market decline. I mean, maybe that's too strong. Maybe that's putting too much faith in Tim Allen, who to me, it's funny. It's a little funny because growing up, Tim Allen was in Home Improvement. Like he was like running in syndication.
Guy barking at cars.
And so and when the Santa Claus came out, I was 5. My mom took me to see it. So, I fond memories of him. But yeah, I mean, Toy Story was a giant hit, all 4 of them. And so I would imagine that there was some kind of a hit just because he wasn't involved in it.
Well, I think that Tim Allen's just been so identified with Buzz Lightyear that it surprised a lot of people that he wasn't the voice. And really don't have much of a reason to say why he couldn't do the voice. I mean, from what I understand, he still has a good working relationship with Disney. I think they're going to do a Santa Claus TV show or
series. Yeah.
So It's not like they hate him. I don't know if that was a reason why people didn't go to see it. But I think it probably did put some people off because they're saying, he is Buzz Lightyear. This is the voice of Buzz Lightyear. When I hear Buzz Lightyear, I hear Tim Allen. I don't hear anyone else. So they probably thought, well, it's probably just a cash grab, so I can skip it or wait a while.
Yeah.
I think with Tim Allen, I don't remember 100%, but it seems to me that in Toy Story 4, it seemed like Buzz Lightyear's role in that movie seemed rather diminished as well. It felt more like a supporting character compared to Woody.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember that, and I always thought that was because of his more conservative beliefs and such. Maybe that was clashing with maybe more Disney's kind of progressive agenda. But yeah, it would have been interesting to see it. If anything, how cool would it be to see Tim Allen on, say, late night TV or what have you, just talking about Buzz Lightyear and returning back to the movie, and then maybe someone who watched the film back in 1995 who has kids now go, hey, this is a movie I could take my son to because I watched Toy Story back when I was so and so years old. We can watch this together because it's it's Buzz Lightyear, it's Tim Allen, it's got all the whole nostalgia factor to it as well. It's hard to say though, it really is, because it just seems to me that maybe the whole kind of project, just the way that it was structured, kind of like the movie within the movie and all that, maybe it was just a little too much for people to really kind of get their head around. Sometimes simple is the best way to go about with some of these things. Don't make things too complex. Look at Star Wars, for example. I think some of that stuff can be really complex for a lot of people, and they don't want to get into the weeds in regards to that. So, but yeah, I don't know. It seems to me though, like that a lot of the Disney content, they're really trying to revamp a lot of these properties with a lot of younger actors, more modern actors. Star Wars, they did it with Star Wars. They're doing it now with all the Marvel films. They're bringing in younger talent as well. So maybe they want to do the same thing with Toy Story, because Tim Allen and Tom Hanks can't live forever. Maybe Toy Story 5 will be a reboot, and they'll bring Chris Evans back. Who knows? The possibilities are endless with what Disney can come up with to try to get some of that cash. So.
Well, if they're mothering their stuff out to Star Wars, they clearly don't know what they're doing, because Star Wars isn't exactly doing very well either. So, I don't know. It seems to be a mess over there at Disney. Overall, the film wasn't very good. The box office returns wasn't very good, and because it's such negative vibe around this film, I don't think they're going to recoup any of that money moving forward. But, hey, it is what it is. Disney has a lot of the money to lose, so that's their problem. So let's go ahead and move on to our second film of the night, which stars another Chris within the MCU, but a much more likable Chris. It's Chris Hemsworth, and we're moving on to Spiderhead. Now, Spiderhead is a very, very odd name for a movie, but this is a Netflix film, so I want to play a quick little short here.
Not Darkenflocks.
Exactly right.
Will somebody went to bed?
Okay, Jeff, we have a new compound for you today. Rip on.
Acknowledged.
Inside every man.
So you sent me home with some of this shit?
I didn't think it was possible. I love you. This is science, Jeff. And in science, we have to explore the unknown.
You of all people.
Should understand the risks.
I've been on some crazy ass project teams, but this one doesn't feel right.
Your presence in this facility, while technically a punishment, is a privilege. What you want is redemption. And this is how you're gonna find it.
Yeah, Spiderhead, ladies and gentlemen. So, for those of you guys who don't quite understand exactly the trailer that you saw, I'll go ahead and explain it to you guys just for a little bit. So, in this film, this is a movie about a group of people who are all ex-cons in one way or another, or people who probably should be in a state penitentiary, but they get selected to be a part of this program, to where if they allow themselves to be essentially guinea pigs by this questionable pharmaceutical company that's definitely not Pfizer or Moderna, that they'll get some time shaved off of their sentence, and they'll also allow them to live in, I guess, some kind of comfort, maybe you can even call it luxury in a certain sense. So Chris Hemsworth plays the guy who's the head of this whole project. He's the guy that's in charge. He's the one that makes the calls and whatnot. And in this film is Miles Teller. And Miles Teller is the guy who's one of the, I guess you can call them inmates that is in this film. and he's essentially one of the guinea pigs. So what happens is that they get called into this little small room where they talk to him for a little bit, and then they'll turn on a drug that's implanted into their back. There's like these little cube things that they use. They inject it into the person's back, and then they'll turn it on to give them any kind of kick that they need. So they have a drug that makes you very, very paranoid, that makes you very, very scared of everything. There's a drug that what they call the love drug that basically makes you want to take your clothes off and have sex with the first person that's in the room, things of that nature. So, like I said, everyone in this facility is willing participants of this experiment because, hey, if we get to sit here and, eat food and lounge around and get some time shave off our sentence, then why not? What's the big deal? Well, everything quickly goes downhill one day when Chris Hemsworth's character tries to get Miles Teller to administer one of the drugs that was experimenting on him, and it was a drug called Ravenflox. Darkenflox.
Darkenflox.
Yeah. Darkenflox. So essentially, the drug makes you extremely paranoid. It makes you extremely violent. If it turned up too high, it even cause you to commit suicide. And he doesn't want anything to do with this drug whatsoever. And because they're essentially forcing him to administer it against his will, he starts asking a few more questions. Well, what exactly is going on here? And the deeper he looks, the deeper he realizes that, hey, this pharmaceutical company isn't exactly what they say they are. Believe it or not, the big pharma is actually kind of shady. And you have to highlight that this film was in fact made before the push for the vaccine. So this is probably one of the last films you'll ever see where Big Pharma is the quote-unquote bad guy of the movie. So just keep that in note. But this was also filmed in Matt's home, Australia. And it was filmed during the COVID era. So if you notice, there's a lot of scenes where people are kind of like social distance, as you want to say. And it shows like in the movie that this is a film that I think took actually about maybe 3-4 months to complete. It was actually quite a bit one with all the protocols, but they got it done. And well, all I can say just to start off is that unlike our first film, LightYear, I definitely like this one far better. That may not be saying too much, but it did have its holes in there as well. So I wanted to get your thoughts kind of just on the basic premise of this film, where you essentially have these guys on an island that are being tested with these questionable drugs that are being injected into their bodies that are making them do a number of things. Did you like the premise, at least the way that it started off? Obviously, we'll talk about how it finished, but were you at least into the premise of the movie when it first started in the first act? I'll go with Matt. Start him off with you.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting. I know it's based on a book called Escape from Spiderhead. Actually, not a book, a short story, I should say. And it kind of, in a weird kind of way, it kind of reminds me kind of like the premise of it anyway. Kind of like a vintage kind of Cronenberg kind of film where he's got this whole thing with, experiments and all that kind of stuff. Kind of like his older films, like, say, a Videodrome or like, what's the one with...
The Fly?
The Fly, yeah, all that kind of stuff, right? It does remind me of that. So it is kind of interesting how it goes about administering the drugs. So it's kind of like you got this, what they call a Moby pack, I think it was, and it's attached to the spine. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. And I like that Joseph Kosinski, the director of the film, he's a pretty good resume behind him so far. He of course did Top Gun Maverick, and before that did Tron Legacy and Only the Brave, which he did with Miles Teller before as well, which I thought was fantastic. And Oblivion was pretty cool with Tom Cruise. So I think he did a pretty decent job here. It was a film, I think, that could have pushed the boundaries a little more. It does have moments in the movie when it comes to sex and violence and some of the questions he asks about the ethics of science and free will and all that, and dystopian kind of stuff, which is part and parcel of what comes with these type of sci-fi movies, a lot of the similar themes. But I think there's kind of like a slick kind of approach to it in the production design and in the casting of the characters as well. Chris Hemsworth, who also produced the film, I thought was terrific in the movie. I guess we'll probably talk about him more down the line. But overall, I liked the premise of it. Like I think, like you said, Jacob, the ending not as fulfilling as it would like to be. I think when you have a movie like this, it has a setup like it does. It could either go like really well, or just go kind of like the drug itself and go really kind of down. And I think the ending, not the best, but overall, it's worth watching on Netflix at least, and much better than other kind of sci-fi movies I've watched of late. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then you have to keep in mind too. This is Netflix, and as we've mentioned many times, they're not exactly known for good content. So when you see something that's halfway decent, you kind of have to put it over just as a default. But Rick, let's go with you, and then I want to get back to Rob. But what was your basic feeling of the premise of the movie?
I thought it was a very good premise. I think that it's interesting. It touches on those issues about control and drugs, and whether you're controlled by the drugs or whether you do have free will. It didn't quite hit the mark for me ultimately, and I think it was also because of the ending. And there were a couple of times, and I'll mention later, when it reminded me of something of another movie, but that was actually a comedy that kind of had a similar premise. And some of the names for the drugs were a little too on the nose for me, where I was starting to roll my eyes and go up like I do. But on the whole, I thought this was a very good premise. I like the idea of this kind of sparse, almost Scandinavian-like prison. I kept thinking they look like they're in Scandinavia, because how there's no guards and they're isolated. But I agree with a lot of what Matt said. That it's a good premise. It didn't quite hit the mark at the end, but I thought it was a very interesting movie that had a lot of good ideas rolling around. I love Miles Teller. I think hopefully we'll talk about him later. I think he's a great talent. I wasn't as impressed with Chris Hemsworth, but I've never been impressed with Chris Hemsworth, to be perfectly honest. There were a couple of points when no, I don't want to see Thor doing ballet. But other than that,
get ready in a couple of weeks, buddy.
but on the whole, it's a good premise. It's a good idea. It touched on things that I thought were interesting. Didn't quite go as far as I thought it could, but no, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
All right, Rob, I think you saw this one just earlier today, right?
No, I actually watched it Sunday. So I watched it yesterday.
Sunday, okay then.
Yeah.
So it's still fresh in your mind. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I actually like the premise. I like dystopian science fiction. I like when you can examine technology and things that we welcome as initial ideas that somehow turn on us, somewhere along the journey. And this is, a situation where you're taking prisoners. Hey, they've committed a crime. They have to pay they have to pay back what they've taken from society. And, this is a way for them to pay that. So everything seems to be in order, right? Everybody's, and
everyone wins.
Well, right. And so I like how it just you slowly kind of get to the point where it's like, oh, this is the catch. This is the sort of game at play that, these people are being affected in a negative capacity. And I like that stuff. I like the questions it poses, the things that it makes us think about as a society. I don't know that it's much more than just a circumstance and a sort of story setup that kind of reaches its logical conclusion. So I definitely like it a lot better than LightYear. I like Miles Teller in it. I think, as Ruben kind of said, I thought that he had a lot of vulnerability and empathy, and he's haunted by the reason he's there. So I really did like his performance, but as a whole, I just felt it kind of limited. But just as a premise, I definitely was on board.
So I want to talk about the two main characters in this film. Well, obviously, Chris Hemsworth being one of them, and then Miles Teller as the other one. Now, Chris Hemsworth is a guy who, let's be honest, outside of the Thor movies, haven't really been in a lot of good films. I think he's been in a lot of very, very bad films. I don't know if he should reconsider his agent, or if he's just not exactly picking the right films, because he's been in obviously the Ghostbusters, the all-female Ghostbusters. He did Men in
Black.
Yeah.
The male bimbo.
Yeah.
In Ghostbusters. By the way, I still have never seen a 2016 Ghostbusters movie. I refuse to watch it. But I know that he plays.
Not missing much.
Yeah.
Okay. But I thought he was good in Rush, though, that Ron Howard film where he played James Hunt, the Formula One driver. I thought it was pretty good in that.
Oh, Rush. You know what? That's been on my list for years. The Ron Howard movie, right? With Daniel Bruhl, I think is the other actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then another film he was actually really good in that was like way under the radar because it came out like during the height of COVID was Extraction, which is another Netflix film that's on the platform too, where I think he goes to somewhere in like India, or if I'm not mistaken. And he's basically like paid to be like an extraction guy. He goes up there to save a guy, and there's like this whole international conspiracy with like crime lords, stuff like that. I thought that film was really good. Like I said,
great action scenes.
Because of the time it came out, that it was just under everyone's radar, and not too many people saw it. So I do kind of root for Chris Hemsworth, because I mean he seems a pretty solid guy from everything I've seen about him. So when a film like this gets presented, I was thinking, okay, hopefully he can find some kind of way to break out in this film, because he doesn't really get the opportunity to play like a true villain role in this one. And in this one, he's kind of more like swarmy. He's not like really imposing or anything like that. He's almost a stooge in a way, but we find out later on that he has his hands on more things than we realize. And then Miles Teller is another guy who I like, and he obviously gets like a lot of crap for people for various nonsense reasons. But in this film, I actually really like the fact that, like you said earlier, like he was portrayed as more of an empathetic character. That you see like his whole backstory, like what happened to him, and how he got here, and his whole story was that he drove drunk on the island one day and crashed, and he ended up saving one of his friends, but another one died. So he ended up getting charged with manslaughter and DUI and everything. So he has this whole like chip on his shoulder. He has this whole like backstory that he's desperately trying to like get past and get over. So it kind of makes sense why he would be in a program like this kind of voluntarily, because the relationship between like him and Chris is unlike once he has like any other inmate on that, where he gets to like come into the room and like talk to him. He gets to like kind of oversee like a lot of the things that are happening there. So obviously there's a trust between like both of them that allows them to be a part of these things and not have to worry about certain details like getting out and sort of that nature. So I wanted to get your ideas of how you guys felt about the two main characters being Teller and Hensler in the film.
Well, I thought that like both did their job well. The thing that really interesting to me of those characters is kind of like the contrast in the imagery, how they kind of present themselves. Chris Hemsworth is a handsome son of a bitch. He really is. It's just in everything about him in this movie, it's just really polished. He's almost kind of like an Apple version of a human being. You know what I mean? Just everything is just kind of sleek and perfect in the way he presents himself. The glasses, the hair, all that kind of stuff. So when when you get underneath the veneer and you find out what is about him, what he's really about, on one end you're not really shocked because there's no way a character like this cannot have a dark side to him, right? But on the other hand, I kind of like the way that he presents himself. He's almost kind of like a analytical kind of dorky guy dancing to like adult orientated rock. That's another thing I liked about the movie, kind of like the cuts like from ELO and all those kind of bands and such. I thought that was kind of fun. But Miles Teller, on the other hand, there's something about him in his characters that he portrays. It brings a kind of like a nervous energy to a lot of it. He brings a lot of kind of like his emotions, his heart's on his sleeve in a lot of his characters. And because of that, it can lead to like a lot of kind of emotional conflict. And I think he does that really well here. So I think the contrast between the two was really, really interesting. You mentioned before Extraction, Hemsworth produced that as well. So he's got a slew of films now with Netflix that he produced. One of them was The Interceptor, which was absolutely terrible. I wouldn't recommend anyone watch that at all. And I can't
even remember if I actually watched that movie or not.
That starred Hemsworth's wife, Elsa.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I know you're talking about. She was just in another very bad. The Intercept. That's literally the movie.
That's the bad one. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So he produced it as well, and Extraction 2 is making as well. But yeah, I like the contrast between the two, and I like that he's playing a villain. He's done it before in Bad Times at the El Rey.
Bad Times at El Royale. That's a movie that I went to see the 10 o'clock showing of that movie on a Saturday night. I actually enjoyed it. I don't know if the movie holds up on rewatch, but I actually like that movie. It's kind of like hidden gem.
So he plays like the cult leader in that, right? And the same kind of thing is kind of like this kind of mystique about him. So I think he does a pretty good job in it overall. I think above anything else, I think the performances by them two were my favorite thing in the movie. Outside of kind of like Joseph Kosinski's kind of approach to kind of like sleek kind of production design and such, but But yeah, I like that. The contrast between the two is really well done. I think there was two actors you could have that to go against of the same kind of generation who can go against each other on the screen. That's a very good kind of like parallels between the two, definitely.
Well, I agree with some of what Matt said. I didn't even think about the contrast because you do see Chris Hemsworth. He is, he's exercising. He's very well dressed, and then Miles Teller's character, he's eating a lot, and he's kind of more casual. So there is that contrast which I didn't think about. I didn't take Chris Hemsworth. I didn't take his villain very serious. It's hard when you're trying to do this little twirl to more than this. And it's a good song, I like it, but I thought he was sometimes a little too goofy in trying to be villainous. It's like it's pretty obvious that you are a villain. Teller, on the other hand, yeah, I like the fact that he is showing a very strong vulnerability. I like Miles Teller as an actor. I've loved him since I saw him in Whiplash, and which was just a fantastic performance. I know J.K. Simmons won the Oscar. He should have been nominated, in my opinion. I think yes, and he's gotten a little lost sometimes, like he was in Fantastic Babies when he was trying to be Mr. Fantastic. It didn't work. But on the whole, I liked his performance because there's always this sense of regret. And with that comes real knowledge. He does not want to inject someone with the darkened flux.
Darkened flux.
Darkened flux. Yeah, he knows what it'll do, and he has this developing relationship with Lizzie, and so he's very hesitant, and he knows he doesn't care what she did, why she's in the prison. He's just fallen in love with her. So I like that, and he knows. He knows that it's wrong. Eventually, he figures it out, what's going on. So no, I think I didn't take, like I said, I didn't take Chris Hemsworth too seriously as a villain. I thought he was a little goofy at times, but Teller really impressed me. I was very pleased with how he handled his performance.
Yeah, so you notice with Miles Teller, this is the third movie that he's worked with director Joseph Kosinski. I believe is his name, because he did Only the Brave back in 2017. Obviously, Top Gun Maverick was earlier this year, and now this is the third film that they've released together. So clearly, they have a somewhat of like a kind of a working chemistry as actor and director. And you can argue that those last three films are probably some of like Miles' like best work to date so far as well. So there's clearly something there between them that actually works. Now, the other main character in this film, who is we don't really get too much on towards the end, is Jurnlee Smollett, who's obviously the sister of the infamous Jussie Smollett.
She's Smollett.
Juicy, yeah. So she's in the film obviously as almost like a pseudo like love interest, because they don't really play it up too much in the beginning, but it becomes like more of a thing towards the end, because in the premise and a lot of the themes of this film, they try to accentuate, okay, can we give these people a drug that will actually give them like a genuine connection to one another? So they try to do that with Miles Teller and a couple of women in this, where they give them a quote unquote drug that that heightens their arousal and whatnot. So they want to try to see, okay, if we can give them this drug, is there actual connection that lasts after the drug takes, or is it only during the administration? So there's a whole thing about that. There was a scene which I thought was pretty funny, but apparently some people like the rap didn't like it. It's the scene where he goes in there with the con who threw his wife or girlfriend out of the 8-story window because she was cheating on him, and they're both sitting there, and it goes through like his mind. It's like, oh God, they're gonna try to make us have sex with each other. So he immediately goes like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not signing off. But of course, it was just like one of the tests that they were like going through or whatnot. But apparently, the rap didn't like that. They called that scene homophobic because he's a straight guy who didn't want to have sex with another guy.
Listen. And I know this just because I've been listening to movie podcasts for literally going on 10 years. The rap is run by a critic named Alonzo Duralde, who's a gay man. So, and he was a guest on my favorite podcast back in 2014, the Brett Easton Ellis podcast. And it's like, I take so much of what the rap has to say with a grain of salt because they constantly overreact to shit like this.
Yeah.
I just wanted to jump in really quick. Like Chris Hemsworth, other than being like a handsome mannequin, and he doesn't. I mean, he's sort of a slightly sinister handsome mannequin in this movie for me. But to me, what he represents almost in the real world is what is known in this country. I don't know if they have them in Australia. What is known in this country as an HR rep.
Right.
Human resources. Basically, these are people that have no skill set. Literally, their job is to get you in trouble with your own company. So find ways to sort of like document things against you to basically eventually fire you. These are people like I said and again, I apologize if I'm offending any HR reps out there, but in my experience, I have had nothing but terrible interactions. But anyway, that's what this guy represents. He's like, he pretends to be your friend. He pretends to, this is good for you. This is what you need to do to get out and to move on with your life. But once you start asking too many questions and he loses it, then you start to see the facade coming down. You start to see the real face. And that's my sort of like comparison is just this person that pretends like they're your friend, but the more you inquire, the more you question the reality of the situation, the more you realize they're not. They're working against you.
It's a really good.
You guys feel that as well?
Well, it's interesting that you brought that up actually, because it's a really good kind of comparison. Because he's essentially there, not to give away too much, of the plot, to like sell a particular drug or test a particular drug, and I love in kind of like the way that he goes about it with his whole open door policy. What's mine is yours. Mikasa Sukasa, all that kind of stuff. Come on in, to my office and we'll talk and sit down and we'll, share our, personal experience.
Lower your guard.
Yeah, exactly. Lower your guard, and then you'll trust in me. Then you'll take this stuff and what have you. What's the thing they say? Acknowledge. They will acknowledge. That they're going to take this. Yeah, it's a really good point, Rob. I take that on board definitely. Yeah.
So I'm glad he brought that up because he looks at it from, obviously Rob looks at it from an HR perspective, because I kind of looked at his character more from just like a general like evil science position. Because, like I said, obviously this is a guy who's in charge of one of those, government contract pharmaceutical companies that you don't hear about, and they're running a lot of questionable experiments, probably some experiments that they don't want getting out in the public. But when you get deeper into the movie, you start exposing some of those themes about, okay, what is the true intentions of the people involved here? You start getting that whole thing of, well, what if we can take away people's basically their free will, right? Well, what if we could just remove people's ability to essentially think for themselves and to object and to be a roadblock in our plans. And there's a speech in the middle of the film talking about it's about essentially that. It's like, well, people who can think for themselves and do for themselves and act for themselves, they're dangerous. So what if we can just give you a drug that can make you do whatever we want you to do, and there's nothing that you can do about it? So you start getting into the more sinister aspects of this pharmaceutical company, because basically these people are essentially the ones that think that they want to act like God. They want to act like, okay, what if we could control millions of people and then basically have no resistance to anything that we can do whatsoever. We can change the world. We can turn this world into a completely like new world, right? Now, obviously, this isn't exactly a new idea or a new premise in movies. It's just like I said, it's kind of ironic given the times that we currently have, that we have a plot line such as this. But
it's prescient because of the whole COVID thing and like the whole, hey, let's push this thing that's not exactly proven to be that effective. So for record profit.
And what do they talk about in the
life? But if it saves just one life, people.
Yes, we'll destroy the entire planet if it just destroys one life. But like you said in the film itself, they even talk about the themes of, for the greater good. We need to do this for the greater good. But then the question is, for the greater good of who? Like, who's deciding what this greater good is? And that's always the problem when it comes to stuff like this. And you've seen these elements in so many TV shows. It's like, wouldn't it just be great if we all just got together and never fought? We can all just live in this utopia of harmony. And then you realize, well, there's a cost of that utopia. And the cost of it is essentially your ability to act as a free human being, to make your own decisions and things of that nature, you realize, oh yeah, that's actually not what I want. Because if I'm just basically a robot that people just press buttons and control all days, is that really living? Is that really the idea of life? So I like that whole conflicting the whole conflict within the film about essentially free will and the ability to do as you please versus an overarching body that just says, hey, you're against whatever we're trying to do, so we're just going to take all that away from you. But it's for your own good. Like, you'll understand that we're actually helping you with what we're doing by make you essentially a zombie, like a robot. Did you guys catch a lot of that?
But think about what happened in Australia. Think about and in China currently. Think about the lockdowns and the people that are locked down are the prisoners in the movie, and then being like, hey, just take this drug and you can get back to the life you want. Just take this injection and you get to have your rights back. And it's like, I'm sorry. And this is personal for me. And for a lot of people, I'm sure, but I lost my job because I wouldn't get vaccinated. And it's like, my life's a little bit harder, but that was my free choice. I wanted to do that. Like, people that were forced to be locked down by their own government because they might get sick. It was insane. So I'm sorry to.
No, I mean,
it's a good point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying it's a good point. And I think it's something that should be put into consideration too. Is that you said before, Jacob, about the making of the film. This was made back like 2020, I think.
Yeah.
It was supposed to come out last year. It was supposed to come out 2021, and they delayed it. Now, why exactly a streaming release was delayed for so long, you don't know. You can understand why a cinematic, something like a Top Gun, is delayed like 3 or 4 years, because they want that, cinematic window and they want people back in cinemas. They could have easily released this film last year, but I think just the themes of the movie, and especially what it's speaking to in regards to forced coercion or someone taking a type of drug or medicine, whatever, I think it was too close to home at that time. Which is why now people can watch it and they can make the comparisons, but they can't make the comparisons living maybe perhaps a little bit of that reality in their own lives at that moment. Because the funny thing is, you'll be watching a movie while stuck in your own cell while watching this movie. So it's a good point.
Well, I would say that I didn't really get that sense of this being almost allegory. But then my experience was a little different. I did kind of lose my job. I was placed on furlough for nearly a year because of the pandemic. But still being in Texas, it eventually was not as restrictive as it looks like in Washington State or Australia. But I just got it more of a sense of science always thinking that you can fix human nature with anything like drugs. Right. That's what the Chris Hemsworth character was saying, that we could end hatred, we could end we won't have to do what you did in causing all this death and misery. We had basically control over you, but you have control over them. But then what kind of life would you lead if others controlled your life and you had no right to make any decision, good or bad? So that's what I got. I didn't think about this being allegory, but again, my circumstances were slightly different.
Well, just real quick, just as you were talking there, what it reminded me of was A Clockwork Orange. The idea of man has to choose good, and when he cannot choose, he ceases to be a man. And that's the whole thing about humanity. And we have to choose the right things. We have to come to the right conclusion. And if we don't, that's still our choice. That's still our freedom to do so. I mean, we have to pay the consequences if we fuck up. But the idea is that we're free to choose. And once you start questioning that, a whole lot of shit can go wrong.
Yeah. Well, what has been the one saying that you heard so much over the last couple of years? It's always been trust the science, right? The note that they
Which
always
science?
carry.
Which science?
Exactly. And not only that, but you say, trust the science. Okay, well, who are the scientists? And the scientists are people in this film like Chris Hemsworth, the ones that think that, hey, we can better the world if we just do this. We can change the world if we just do this. And then you hear what their ideas are. It's like, well, that's going to make things significantly worse. I don't want to do that. But on a bottle film like this, it's not as a large spread, because obviously he doesn't have the power of a government that says, no, you have to do exactly what the guy says, or else this, that, and the other. unlike what's going on here in the last few years. But that was one of the strongest things for me, especially towards the end, where you really start to understand the character motivations of why this guy is doing this. Because, like I said, he's trying out all of these drugs, and then come to find out that, well, these drugs have already been tried out. So it's like, okay, well, why do you keep giving these drugs to these people? It turns out, well, he's actually trying something else, which it turns out to be, a secret drug, which is, to contest your free will. Can we make you do something that you do not want to do, that's against your humanity, that's against you, the fiber of being who you are? Can we give you a drug that can make you hurt someone that you love? Can we give you a drug that can give you an order that you don't want to follow? And that's the real that's the real plan behind the scenes about this whole thing. That's when you start getting into the more sinister aspect of it. Now, there are a lot of sinister aspects of this film, but there's also a lot of what you could say comedic aspects of the film as well. So I want to ask you guys, do you think that, I guess, the comedy bits in this movie kind of took away from the more serious aspects of the film too? Because there are aspects of the film that are more serious, but then you have the running joke of the person with the poop finger, and that becomes a thing throughout the entire thread of the movie. So do you like that in your films? Because I typically don't like when you have a super serious topic like this and you kind of undercut that with comedy. It's like I don't mind it if it's very subtle, but when you keep shifting from one genre to another, I think it takes away from both. That might have been some of the issues that we have with the ending. I'll start with you, Matt.
Well, I think that when you're dealing with a story that deals with human emotions, you can't help but sometimes have that stuff come to the fore. I think that scene, especially near the start of the film, where Miles Teller is with that kind of the other actress. What's her name? The character's name is Heather, I think. And they're pumped up with the love drug and all that stuff. That's almost like a slapstick kind of scenario happening there. But if you're going to have a love drug, then that's something like that might happen. I think it's just natural path of the course. But I think it's also interesting in that I think in a lot of ways these prisoners or these test subjects going through these different experiences it's kind of like a distraction from what is actually happening to them. The underlying real reason why they are there. And I think that's just a really kind of interesting thing because if anything over the last few years have shown us a lot of people, whether they are addicted to social media or other things, have been distracted by other things while not looking at certain truths that are happening as well, and before it's too late. So, but I think it's just a normal way of going about it if you're dealing with human emotions upon a level where certain aspects of being human is ramped up to the 10th degree. I think sometimes funny scenarios will come out of it.
Yeah, I thought some of the comedy actually came more from the names of the drugs than they were from the circumstances. Like there was Laugh-A-Dill, Love Active, Dark and Fox.
And not to mention all the drugs in the film are basically extensions of a bingo game. So they'll give a drug name like N24 or something like that. Then you come to find out it's like, oh, this is all just based on literally a game of bingo, which it gives an extra layer there as well.
And the love drug was N40, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. N40. Yeah, that's Love Active. That was the love drug.
Yeah.
But I think because of that, I flash back to a movie. I don't know if any of you have ever seen it. The Kids in the Hall, Brain Candy, and I
love Kids in the Hall, but I didn't realize there was a movie.
Yeah, they did make one movie. It was called Brain Candy, and it's kind of similar to this, is that they create a drug that will make people happy, and they call it Gleamonex. So, but there's a side effect that it kind of freezes you permanently. I guess eventually kills you, but because of those names, there was the Fear One, Phobica, and all those. That's why in the back of my mind I wasn't taking that as seriously. And then like I said, that thing with the finger, the poopy finger thing, they're escaping, and then they run into the person who did it. Like this doesn't seem like the right time to bring up.
Oh, you guys are talking about the poop on the wall. The guy was the janitor guy was complaining about the poop on the wall. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and we found out at the end who it was. It was like you're escaping. The island is about to be raided by the police, and we're focusing on this right now. We could leave that. We could leave that.
With the music playing in the background.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm thinking they probably spent a lot of money on the licensing because I'm going, wow, this is pretty good soundtrack here.
Yeah.
But no, I could have done a little bit less with some of the comedy, but unfortunately the comedy came sometimes from the names, from the drug names, and from Chris Hemsworth, doing little dancing to More Than This. That song I can't get out of my head now, but that's that kind of diminished it a little, but it's not something like it was horrible.
Yeah. I mean, at least he's not dancing to Deep Purple this time around, so I guess there's an upgrade.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
No, yeah, I was going to say that I think that a lot of great movies actually balance drama and humor very well. I think that it's actually one of the hardest things to do. However, when you do it, you have to be able to pull it off. Otherwise, it's very awkward and it's out of place and doesn't work. I don't know that there's enough material on the serious side of it for it to matter. So I think here it is a nice distraction momentarily, but I think like the dystopian science fiction ideas aren't strong enough, and for it to be just straight across the board, like serious, dramatic. These people trying to escape this prison. So I mean, I think it helped it, but I don't know that just the material from the movie itself lends itself to not have it. So I think it's a benefit.
Yeah, I think movies, the ones that balance it well, make it so that when you shift from one genre to another, it's not jarring. Like it's supposed to go like smoothly. Like sometimes you'll get like a comedy bit like out of nowhere that's really funny, but it doesn't overall break up the entire theme of the film. Which is obviously we talked about this a little bit with Jojo Rabbit. I thought they did a terrible job of doing that in that movie, which is why I absolutely hated that film because. If it was just a straightforward drama, it actually would have been a very, very good film. But then you have to like ruin it with the Waka Waka stuff. And it's like, okay, well, both of these like don't work, especially with a film based on Nazi Germany in World War II. It's like it doesn't work both ways like that. So that was kind of the big one with me. But well, one quick point until we get to our final thoughts. What did you guys think of the cinematography of the film? Because obviously they didn't have a whole lot of sets to work with, given like the whole situation that was shot around COVID. So they only really had maybe about 3 or 4 like sets entirely. So that's kind of where the whole film was shot at. It looked good for what they had, but do you guys think that it was missing something, or do you guys think they did a good job of what they had at their disposal?
I think it's typical of the films that Joseph Kosinski's made. They have a very kind of sleek look to them. Yeah, I think it was fine. Especially I think for something we essentially got to be watching on a small screen. It works just works well. Yeah, I thought it was okay. I'm just looking at who did it. His name is Claudio Miranda. He did the photography on Life of Pi, and also on The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. So digitally filmed. So digital filmmaking. Yeah. So Joseph Kosinski.
Ugly.
Yeah. He works on digital. Yeah.
Sorry. No, I don't mean to be rude. I just just a quick jump in here. I didn't like how it looked at all. I thought but again, it's like three rooms, 3 sets. It was fine. It was shot competently. There's nothing to complain about. It's just not much to look at. So that's all I'll say.
Well, I disagree with you, Rob. I thought that the visuals actually worked well because it was supposed to be kind of a sparse world. Yeah. So I rolled with that, but again, I kept thinking this is like a Scandinavian prison because it's all perfect and beautiful up there, and there are no guards, and people have gourmet meals up there. So it worked. It worked for the setting. It worked for the story. I thought it was well shot, and especially when you have that very violent moment with Heather, that big splash of red there. So I thought it was well done.
Oh, I forgot I was muted there for a second.
No, yeah, I mean and I'm saying I agree with you. I think that thinking about the setting, thinking about the story being told in a visual way, I think it's fine. I just, I just wish there was more to look at. But that's not the movie's fault necessarily. You know, if they accomplished what they set out to do, you know, they were successful. I just, you know, I want something more, especially, you know, I definitely look for that visual component of composition, blocking, framing, of, you know, how things look in that specific space. And I realize most people listening to this or watching this probably couldn't give a shit. But so, yeah, I just want a little bit more artistry, a little bit more to look at in terms of composition. But that doesn't necessarily mean it failed. It just, it lacked a little bit of, you know, visual power for me.
Okay. Well, I want to get everyone's final thoughts on the movie. I mean, as far as this film goes, I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot more than I didn't like it. I think my biggest pet peeve about it was towards the end, especially in the final act, it gets a little too cliche and a little too by the numbers. Because I think they were telling a good, solid story up to that point, but then it kind of felt like, okay, well, we need to have, you know, the chase scene. We need to have, the kind of the villainous Mullenall towards the end and whatnot. And then I think they kind of like undersold the fact that, you know, at one point they had everyone in the entire compound essentially like trying to like get these two off the island. So they kind of like had it set up there, but they didn't really do anything with it. They could kind of just like dismissed it. Like after a minute, then it just became, oh, here comes an ocean chase because we need some kind of like big budget thing to happen towards the end of this film. So for me, there's a lot that I like. I do like the two characters. I like Hemsworth. I like Teller. Smollett was just kind of there for the most part. She played a role that they needed her to play. I don't think she brought too much to the scene, but I like the premise. I like the style of the film a lot more. For me, it's a solid film. I give it a 3 out of 5. I wouldn't go much higher than that one because there are some things that I could look at. I could probably poke a holes if I'm like nitpicking and stuff like that. But overall, I definitely think it's probably one of the better films that I've seen from that platform in quite a while. So I want to go with Matt. What did you think of the film overall?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think in the context of like Netflix releases, which look, essentially, if we're going back 20 years, they'll be straight to DVD movies, right? Or straight to cable.
Yeah.
So in the context of that, I think it's a really well done movie, a solid kind of sci-fi thriller. The premise I liked. I'm the same with you. I think all of us agree with the ending just didn't really live up to the expectations that the premise had for it. I like the performances. I like Joseph Kosinski as a director. I think it worked well. And it's really interesting just bringing up some of the themes that you had as well. I think it's worth having another watch and with those themes in mind and picking it apart a little bit. So if I was going to give it a score, maybe we're doing a 3, maybe a 3.5 if I'm generous, out of 5. Yeah.
Hey, Rick, what you think?
Well, I'm the ending is the thing that keeps me from going to a 3. I would give it a 2.5 because I didn't believe the ending and some of the, like I said, some of the drugs, one of the names of the drugs seemed a little too funny for me. So I again brought up other things, but I like the performances. I think Teller's a great talent. So I was impressed. It didn't quite land the way I hoped it would, but I would give it a 2.5, and I'll add that the Chris Hemsworth character, he needs to learn what I've known for years, not from personal experience. You never use your own stuff, all right? Never use your own stuff. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
As they say in Scarface, don't get high on your own supply.
There you go.
And then proceed to do a lot of your own supply afterwards. Rob, what do you think?
I thought it was an interesting premise. I liked the setup. I liked Miles Teller's performance in it. I didn't find much past that. And I was kind of over it by the second act. I agree the ending doesn't really work. It's kind of just, things are falling apart and they're trying to escape, and, the sort of necessary steps that we need to go through plot-wise to get to the ending. But yeah, I like Miles Teller's vulnerability and the empathy you feel for him and his, what haunts him, what he's gone through. And, I thought, again, I'm very low on the Netflix movie. So I thought that, despite visual limitations, just wanting more out of a movie in general, I thought it was all right. But I just didn't think that it took much past that initial idea, that initial circumstance. So I gave it a 2 out of 5.
Okay. So I mean, it seems like we're all kind of like in the same agreement, at least with the last act of the film. But obviously, some of us like some of the elements of it a little bit better than others. So, and not too jarring, not too polarizing. But I think we're all kind of on the same page with most of our thoughts. So. Pretty well. We just hit the 2 hour mark, and we just got through our second film of the night. That's our final film of the night. So I really like the discussion that we had here, and I'm glad that we can get like the full cast on here to talk more about some of these films, and hopefully we can start doing this a lot more towards the future. So before I tell you what you guys have planned for next week and things of that nature, I want to give everyone a chance to kind of like promote what they want to promote, and give everyone a chance to say, hey, we want more of you guys. Let's figure it out. So let's start off with Mr. Rob Motto. Where can they find you?
Hey guys, my Twitter is down below. I talk movies. I watch something like 15 movies in a week, and that's when things are slow. So I'm always on there talking about movies. I do movie reviews every Monday night here with Society, and sometimes I'm on the Saturday movie stream. So check it out.
Yeah, I forgot to put that over. You watched 11 this week, including the 2 that we reviewed as well.
Yeah, this weekend. Yep.
That busy man over there. Yep. Rick, where can they find you if they want to hear more of Rick's movie reviews?
All right. Well, they can find me at Rick's Texan Reviews, and there's probably a link over with the Online Film Critics Society that I'm a member of. I'm going to try to remember to add my Twitter, which is at RXCafeTX. I really, I'm just going to try to catch up on the reviews that I have kind of backlogged. Now that I don't have all these games to go to, so that's my spiel.
All right, nice. And then our guest for the night, hopefully we can do a lot more with him moving forward, Mr. Matt. I know it's probably like 2 in the afternoon on Tuesday. I mean, it doesn't make any sense over here in the U.S. But thanks for joining us today. And where can they find you if they want more of Matt's movie reviews?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me on today. It's been a blast. You can find my website at mattsmoviereviews.net, latest reviews, top 10 lists, etc. You can find Matt's Movie Reviews on YouTube. You can find the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast everywhere that does podcasts. And there's also the Matt's Movie Reviews Patreon, where you can request reviews, top 10 lists, etc. And I also do reaction videos to movies and such. So yeah, anyway, you type in Matt's Movie Reviews in Google and you can find me there.
Nice. And then I want to go ahead and give you guys kind of an update of what we're going to be doing here coming up. So we did LightYear and the Spiderhead this week. Next Monday night, we're going to be reviewing the Elvis film, and we're also going to be reviewing The Black Phone, which is a very interesting horror movie that I'm pretty interested in. So hopefully that one comes out pretty good week for us. As far as side reviews here on the YouTube, well, actually, on Wednesday night will be the next time you guys see me. I'll be with Spencer, our editor extraordinaire, at the Bounding in the Comics YouTube for the Black Pill stream. That's Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking about the news of the week there. On my YouTube right here, Friday night, I'm also on Twitch too. I just want to throw that out there. We're also going to be on Twitch and YouTube, and I kind of want to do more Twitch exclusives coming up as well. So definitely, if you haven't followed us on Twitch, go ahead and do that there. But Friday night, we'll be doing the Barroom podcast. It'll be myself, TW, Cassie, may have Rob back. Josh hopefully should be joining us back next week as well. We're going to be talking about more entertainment news. Saturday night, which is going to be a Twitch exclusive, it'll be our movie night. We'll be watching and talking about The Faculties, the 1998 film. With essentially based on The Body Snatchers, just in case you guys haven't seen it. It's a very popular film, so I don't know how many people have or have not seen it. But that's pretty much what we have coming up here for the week. And then obviously next week with those 2 films, we'll be back here once again. So as far as the guys for the panel here, I want to stay and talk to you guys for a minute once we go off the broadcast. But for everyone else here, definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to Twitch if you guys want to see more. And we'll see you on the YouTube on Friday night. And for next Monday night, we'll see you for more movie reviews. So thank you very much for joining us here tonight. Take care, and we'll see you later.